Welcome to Save Our Tradition of Excellence. School facilities matter. My name is Sherry Jones. I'm the current president of the League of Women Voters of the Helena area. As most of you know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We do not support candidates or parties. We support voter rights and voter access to information about candidates and issues. We also advocate for issues on which our league has come to a consensus using extensive research and deliberation, thus this forum tonight. At our 2025 state convention, the League of Women Voters of the Helena area joined with all the other leagues in Montana, and we voted to support a position to promote efficient and equitable financing of public education, with the state funding its share of the cost, and to provide a high-quality public education beginning in early childhood, which produces graduates with skills in critical thinking, reading, writing, and mathematics, and an understanding of democracy and how governments function. It is due to this position and knowledge that we've gained concerning the highly inadequate and deteriorating condition of our two high school buildings, Kessler Elementary and our district kitchen, that we are holding this forum. Our guests tonight have been chosen because they all have information that is crucial to our understanding of this situation, and they'll be able to answer your questions after all of them have finished speaking. You'll see a note card on your chair. Please fill out any questions you might have for our speakers on this card and pass them along to one of our league volunteers. Which reminds me that we haven't chosen the league volunteers for this, so can somebody organize that for me? and they will be standing toward the end of your rows around the time that we would like to start gathering the cards, so feel free at that point to hand them in. Okay, you can also find information at helenaschoolbond.org after this forum. To see the actual bond wording, go to the League's Vote 411 page, just Google Vote 411 and put in your address. We have some handouts out there that have more information too from the Yes for Helena Public Schools group, and that should help fill in any gaps that you might have after tonight. Also, please note the cameras. HCTV will be filming this forum. You can view it by streaming on HCTV's channel within a few days. It can be on your computer for those of you who haven't done this yet. Recordings of this event may not be used without the express written approval of the League, except by news media reporting on the event or for nonpartisan education. Our full recording policy is at the welcome table. And so are our brochures, by the way, if you want to pick one up on your way out. So let's get rolling. Please welcome our four speakers, Ryan Cooney, Jennifer McKee, Luke Muskowitz, and Todd Verrill. We're going to start out this evening with Ryan Cooney. Now, Ryan grew up in Helena, attended Central School, Helena Middle School, and graduated from Helena High in 2002. After graduating from UM Western, Ryan was hired by Capitol High School to teach freshman world cultures and senior government. He was 22, teaching 18-year-olds. He had about 3 days, I learned tonight, to prepare for all of this, setting up his classroom, the whole thing.
That's true.
So, after 11 wonderful years at Capitol High School, he eventually took on the AP Government program, and in 2018, he began teaching social studies at PAL, which is Project for Alternative Learning, for those of you who, like me, didn't know precisely what that stood for at first. Now, he's become a champion for PAL and alternative learning, which he will be discussing this evening. Ryan notes he is married to Erica Cooney and is the father of a wonderful little boy who has just turned 4 and will soon be a student at Helena Public Schools.
Thanks so much, Sherry. Really happy to be here. Glad to see so many faces in the crowd tonight. This is important, and you all know that, so thank you for showing up. I feel so passionately about education, not just in our community, but across this state, across this great nation. And I want to talk to you all a little bit tonight about my experience, how the Helena School District has impacted me, made me the person that I am today, and how I have used those lessons used my time with the district, I hope and I think, to impact students, and something that I plan on doing for many years to come. So again, thank you for having me. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, thanks to the Helena School District, people like Lisa Cordingley who have worked so hard. I think this is worth it. And I hope in the audience tonight we don't just have supporters, people who are all for this. We want you to support it, but if there are people who have tough questions, people who want answers, that's exactly what this is for. And so I look forward to answering your questions. I have some comments that I'll go through, some discussion about my career and what I do at PAL, but really in the end, I'm here to answer questions and engage in friendly conversation. So as was mentioned, I did grow up in Helena. I had the great pleasure of going to the old Central School. I worked with Mrs. Baroulis in one of the first Montessori classrooms, and that really gave me the foundation that I needed to eventually be successful. I found that as I entered my middle school phase, I was chatting with some earlier, one of the worst 3 years of my life, and that kind of set me on a trajectory, educationally speaking, that was not so positive. But thanks to the fact that I had incredibly supportive parents, which not all students do, as you know, but more importantly, in the school setting, incredibly supportive teachers. Teachers who are not going to let me fail, teachers who are going to push me to succeed, and made sure that I graduated. And so after graduating with a kind of embarrassing GPA, I think it was at 2.5 or something like that, I went up to Bozeman, had a pretty less than stellar year there, came back to Helena, tried to figure out what it is that I wanted to do, and then I found Western in Dillon. And I think I relate so well to the PAL program and the PAL students because Western is built very much like PAL. Small classes, the professors know your names, they utilize the block schedule so you're focusing on one class at a time, and it feels more like a family than anything else. And I went from a kid who had just kind of gone through the motions, done the bare minimum, to a student who was incredibly interested, incredibly invested in what I was doing, and excited about the prospect of becoming a teacher. So when I graduated in 2007, I did want to come back to Helena. This is a very special community to me, and I wanted to be able to come back. I wanted to build a family here and put down my adult roots in this community, and I'm lucky I was able to do so. But yeah, it was end of the summer 2007, 3 days before school started, as Sherry mentioned, and I found myself setting up my classroom at Capitol High. So that first year was kind of a blur for me, but thanks to some wonderful mentors, a lot of support from the district, Randy Carlson, who was principal at the time, my mentor, Marcia Odell, an AP history teacher, Jay Partridge, who still teaches there, Sean Diola, they guided me along and they showed me what it would take to succeed. And I'm happy I stuck with it because I am blessed. It has been a wonderful career. And I loved Capitol High. Even though I was a Bengal growing up, I played football. The Bruins were our enemies. But Capitol High holds a very special place in my heart. And after about a decade, teaching AP government, I felt like I was ready for something else. I was ready for a new challenge, ready for a change, and that's when I learned of the PAL opening. And even though I had grown up in Helena, I didn't know much about PAL. PAL to me was kind of a place where just the troublemakers, the druggies, so on and so forth went. And unfortunately, I think that is a perception that much of this community had for a long time. And it's starting to change, which is a good thing. But as I started to research the program and learn about what exactly they did, giving these students a second chance, giving those students a chance to succeed in a small setting, I was sold. I was really excited about joining the program. Was very fortunate that the principal at the time, Wynn Randall, brought me on, and here I am today. And so that's a little bit about me, and I just want to make it clear, because I think sometimes when we talk about students who come to PAL, it's easy to say, oh, that's the fault of Capitol High, or that's the fault of Helena High. That's not necessarily the case. Helena High, Capitol High, they are wonderful institutions, and they serve students in a fantastic fashion. But there are those students who slip through the cracks. And I know that without programs like PAL or Paris Gibson or Willard, there would be students who would go their freshman year, drop out, and never step foot in a school building again. And so programs like PAL are integral to the educational system and integral to the community, in my mind. So a little bit about PAL. PAL was established in the late 70s, And we've been moved around a little bit. Since I've been with the program, we've always been at the Front Street location. They've been in Lincoln Center. I heard that they were actually above the Windbag restaurant at one point in time when they first started. So, you know, it's a colorful program, but we're proud of it. And like I mentioned, we are much more of a family than anything else. As a PAL teacher, my day starts with 10 to 15 of my advisees. We're the Sleeping Giants. And from the moment those students come into what we call academy, so they have to do 9 weeks of orientation, and then they, if they decide to, and it's been successful, become academy students, they are assigned to an advisor, and we call the teachers the school parents. And that's literally what we are. I have cell phone numbers in my contacts. I help students find jobs. If a kid is having a problem getting food at home or doesn't have shampoo or a place to shower, we figure that out. If there are living situations that aren't working out, I get very involved in that. And so by the time they reach their senior year and they're walking across the stage, big smile on everybody's faces, it really is powerful because I know that due to me and my fellow coworkers and the students that we were able to make this happen. I think that it's important to recognize some particular students who have found success. I just had a young woman graduate, Angel is her name. She just texted me yesterday. She is a young woman who was pretty open about the fact that she was suicidal at Helena High, and she was ready to take her own life. Her mom mentioned that maybe PAL would be a good option. She was skeptical at first, didn't really want to do it. Came to the program, gave us a shot, and became one of our superstars. She just started class at MSU yesterday, working on her criminology degree, and is, on cloud 9 right now. I think about Liam, a young man who very similarly was pretty miserable in the big school setting. He was bullied, and that's the other thing. It's not just troublemakers that we get. I was a troublemaker. I know that type of student. We get students who are good kids and smart kids. They're all smart, but they just don't do well in that large setting. They too easily sit in the back of the classroom and disappear. They deal with social anxiety, which we're seeing more and more of since COVID. Well, Liam, in a very similar situation to Angel, was miserable, was depressed. He came to PAL, made friends. He became the president of chess club at PAL, and is now starting his second year at Western, working on his math education degree. I think of Ava, who just graduated this year, and she is going to be starting at the cosmetology program at Helena College. I think about Caleb, who joined the Navy. He's been with the Navy for a year now. And so many more. We have kids who go to college, we have kids who go to the trades, we have kids who go to the military. And I'm proud to say that our graduation rate is right around 90%, which is pretty incredible. And so I'm very, once more, proud to talk about that. Our motto, if you will, TARPIT, kind of interesting sounding, tolerance, acceptance, respect, pride, individuality, and trust, truly drive our program. The students memorize that. We talk about it when we have our weekly all schools, and you feel that throughout the building. And you can tell that the students trust us, they trust the process, they trust each other. We're very open with each other. There are hard conversations had, tears are shed, but we're always able to work through it. And I really do credit the fact that PAL is able to offer such a personable and personalized experience. The program is growing, as many of you are probably aware of. We became a charter school. This past school year was our first year as the charter school designation. And with that comes some funding, which is a good thing, as we all know. Funding is always needed, but it also comes with requirements that we grow the program. In fact, we're going to go from about 60 students currently to doubling that potentially in the next 5 years. And so I think for me, this is an important point, because our current facility just doesn't cut it. We are maxed out right now. We are really unable to take any more students as far as numbers are concerned. And the building is really not suitable for what we do. On 815 Front Street is where we're located. It's an old grocery store, and it was never meant to be a school. It then became the adult learning center, and we've made it work. But once more, if we want to serve the number of students that we plan on serving, we're going to need to expand. And so currently the plan is to go to Helena High, and we will make it work there. But hopefully, if the bond passes, We will be getting our own building, state-of-the-art on the campus of Helena High. We will be able to bring in the number of students that we need to bring in, and we're really excited about that. I was chatting with others earlier this evening. For the first time in Powell's history, we'll be taking freshmen on. And there was a lot of trepidation about that initially because it's never been done before. I'm personally a big proponent of it. I also think, something else I discussed with others tonight, the middle school eventually would be a good place to try to expand alternative education to, but one step at a time. But I do think the more students we can serve, the better. If a freshman is coming into high school and they need our services, then we should be able to offer that. And so that's a huge part of why I'm supporting the bond. I feel that overall it will serve our community. It's a big ask. I get it. My property taxes have more than doubled in the time that I've been in my house. But I also feel, with a young child at home and just caring about our society, that it's a worthy investment. And I also think that if you look at what the district is planning on doing, these are facilities that will outlast all of us and that will go long into the future. The dividends paid will be unbelievable. And so I'm pretty excited, and I'm feeling optimistic, and I really hope that we can get this past the finish line. And I think that's about it as far as my opening comments go. Once more, thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for being here, and I really look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Next up is Todd. Todd Barrell is the Facilities Director for Helena Public Schools. Now, as the League's observer of the Helena Public School Board of Trustees, I have learned a lot from Todd's presentations about the inner workings of our school buildings, or in some cases, how they don't work. I've also learned how much effort goes into maintaining our buildings throughout the year and how dedicated our facilities and maintenance staff are. And he has a lot to show us tonight.
I'm going to switch things up here, and I'm going to move this over to my side so I can
Watch out for the rebar.
show you guys some pictures. Okay, show you guys some pictures because nobody wants to hear me talk. They want to look at pictures. Okay, see if I can do this. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It came very early. Actually, I got a phone call months ago, and I was thinking, man, why? You guys are on top of it. And I said yes, of course, and then it snuck up on me, and here I am. But I've talked about this so much, and I've heard the superintendent talk about it so much, and it's such an important topic that I'm very happy to be here. So again, thank you. If you see my thing here, it's Capitol High, Helena High, Kessler High, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I scratched out the good. But really, the good is the people and the students in the school district. Really are wonderful people. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background and put it into context. I spent 31 years in uniform, 27 of those as an Army engineer officer, 10 years in the big Army, quote unquote, and then 17 years as a full-time guardsman out of Fort Harrison. And I've been part of a lot of wonderful organizations over the years. I've seen leadership while deployed to Iraq. I've seen everyday leadership. I've seen great leaders and bad leaders. And I have to tell you, the leadership of Helena Public Schools is outstanding. People ask me if I miss being in the Army. No, I don't. I loved it. I would do it again. But I truly love working for this organization. Just wonderful people that are serving our community and our kids. And that's an honorable thing to do. So I'm happy to be here. I love going to work. I love talking about this stuff. So without further ado, here we go. I'm going to show you some pictures of our schools that most people don't see. And I'm glad they don't see them, because they're not good. Here's Capitol. We talked a lot about Helena High and the problems at Helena High. Capitol High has a lot of problems too. So the boilers at Capitol High are nearly as old as the boilers at Helena High. These were installed, original equipment, in 1965. They are hot water boilers, and it's hard to find people to work on these things anymore. In fact, we had to bring folks in from Spokane to work on the boilers at Helena High, and I just wrote a check for $34,000 to do that. And I still don't know if they're gonna last more than a week. So, we'll see. So, Capitol High needs work too. There's corrosion in the system. Because after 60 years, things just start to deteriorate. As we know, the heating season in Helena is long. There's a lot of demands on these systems, and they're running 24 hours a day, 9 months out of the year. More corrosion. We have damage, because as anybody who's had kids know, kids are tough on stuff. We have thousands and thousands of events in our schools every year. After the bell rings, that lets the students out. There's people in our schools just about every day of the year. It blows my mind when I get a readout of the events that are happening in our schools every week. So obviously, when there's thousands of kids running around in school, there's going to be damage. We have an electrical system at Capitol High that is original to the building, that is extremely unreliable, and some of the stuff we've simply abandoned in place because it's outdated and no longer usable, such as this. I don't even know what this is. Actually, I do know what it is. It's the controls for the HVAC system. But that is such an antiquated system, we can't use it anymore. Those lights aren't actually on, it just looks like they are. That's been abandoned in place as well. Here's some fuses. That's not normal. That's not good when it catches on fire essentially or melts. Look at this thing. This is from 1982. This is a telephone and data lines abandoned in place. This is the CTE shop, or the shops that are detached from the school. As you can see, it's deteriorating. Here's a nice bathroom. Yeah, maybe a partition would be nice. But the reason there's no partition there is because the students destroyed it. Okay, here's Helena High. That's probably asbestos. That's not open to the public, by the way. And I held my breath when I did it, so. There's lots of corrosion in the system at Helena High. There's 2 schools in our district that still run steam boilers, meaning steam goes through pipes, it heats classrooms, and then it comes back as water as it condenses. In a system like that, if there's leaks in the system and oxygen can get into the system, you'll start to see corrosion. I think there's oxygen in our system. We lose about 10,000 gallons of water a year out of our leaking system. The boilers at Helena High are about 45% efficient. They're 70 years old. There they are. They look wonderful in a museum. But we still run them. And they're either on or off in the classrooms. There's no temperature controls. The way we control those things is called through pneumatics, which is air. We have to have a compressor in here to close and open dampers and valves. And then it's such an antiquated system. Nobody uses pneumatic controls. It's like you having air pipes in your house to control your air conditioning system. It doesn't work. Yes?
What year was Helena High built?
1955. 70 years old this year.
Thank you.
Here's the steam tunnel. Everyone talks about the mythical steam tunnels. Yeah, they're underneath there. And you can see all of the infrastructure underneath there. This is actually a pretty good picture, but you can tell there's been water in here because this is all dirt. Look at that. That's wonderful. That's a sump pump in the basement of Helena High because it routinely floods down there. So we've got a sump pump down there, and you can see that it's flooded multiple times. I have better pictures of the flooding, but that gets the job done. Okay, here's a great one. The pipes are so corroded that when we try to tighten a pipe that's leaking, typically it breaks off. So this has been a capped steam pipe that goes to a classroom. We can't fix it, so that classroom no longer has heat. Can't fix it. I should have brought my little show and tell. Okay, here's water. Here's condensation on the roof of one of the pump rooms underneath the school. Filled with water, filled with condensation because the steam is just venting out of the system because it's leaking. Here's a pump that returns water back to the boilers. Well, there's one pump. The other one is, I don't know where it is. It's not there anymore. Okay, here's a good example of what happens in a classroom when we have a steam leak. Our plumber comes in and tries to fix it, tries to tighten it, and it breaks off, and all of that steam then rises up and destroys the wall. That room no longer has heat because we couldn't fix it. Oh, there's the piece right there. That's what we broke off. That helps return water back to the boiler. There's hundreds upon hundreds of these in that school. Okay, this is the little theater. This is the ventilation system. This is supposed to be up there. And this thing is supposed to turn. But it's been so damaged over so many years, we just had to turn it off. There's no ventilation in the theater anymore. That's at least $60,000 just to fix that. Oh, look at that. No, those aren't controls from a World War II submarine. Yeah, dive captain. Those are pneumatic controls abandoned in place. I love that picture. Okay, let's look at Kessler, built in 1936. Oh wait, oh look, that looks pretty new. This is actually a fairly new boiler. But here's the 2 old ones, 3 old ones, 4 old ones. I don't even know how old those old ones are, but we have 1 out of 5 is new. Those are the old ones. No, that's not too exciting. But, you know, that's what it looks like underneath the school. Oh, look at that thing. Wow. That's original. Well, that's from the 50s, actually. So, yeah, that's 1950s technology over here. If you own a house from the 50s, you would have taken that out long ago, because it's antiquated. Oh, there's some more of our favorite data and telephone lines abandoned in place, installed on a piece of plywood. Oh, here's some nice original windows, single pane windows. When you go into that particular classroom at the beginning of the school year, maybe next week, it's probably 95 degrees in that room. It's unbearable. And I feel terrible for those little first graders. But most of the windows, at least on this section of this school, are in this type of shape. And we've painted this school multiple times in the last 15 years. We'd have to paint this every year to keep it from disintegrating. This school has had 7 additions over the last 89 years. 7. When you walk into it, it's like a Lego piece that was put together from a bunch of different kits. Here is a modular classroom at Kessler. Modular classrooms do not lend themselves to safety and security for our kids because they have to walk across the basketball court to get to their classroom. That's not necessarily safe, and it's not a best practice. Oh, hey, look at this, the original foundation. Isn't that lovely? A rubble foundation from 1936. You can see it's got wood floors, we've got some plumbing there, we've got some hot water pipes, you have to duck down, it's about this high off the ground. Obviously kids don't go down there, but my guys in the maintenance shop do. Here's the gymnasium, multi-purpose gymnasium. As you can see, they put these tables down and they pull these chairs out, and that's their lunchroom and their gym, and where they hold their school meetings or their assemblies. That is an antiquated way of building a school. The floor looks great because we work on it, but it's insufficient for what the schools need. Okay, that's the pictures. I've got hundreds more. I'm not here to advocate for or against a position. I'm here to educate people on the state of our schools. And I want to address something that I've heard a few times. Why aren't you guys taking care of our schools? I would throw that back and say, when was the last time a school was closed because of a maintenance issue? I don't think anybody can answer that question because as far as I know, it's never happened. The team that works in the maintenance shop does a wonderful job. They're miracle workers in many regards because these schools with an average age of 72 years old are kept running 365 days a year. We don't have enough money in our budget to maintain them. We've got $120 million of deferred maintenance. And we have major mechanical systems that are failing or could fail tomorrow. We don't run our businesses that way. We don't run our homes that way. We wouldn't allow our parents to live in an assisted living home that's in these states. So why are we allowing our kids to come into these buildings? They are safe, they are warm, and they are dry, but they're no longer sufficient for this community. And my job is very secure because the 85 guys that work in the shop, including the custodians, have a lot of work to do. And I'm thankful for the amount of money we have in our levy to maintain these buildings, but $4.5 million a year, I will never catch up, just on the deferred maintenance, ever. It'll take me 30 years to catch up, and by that time, the things that weren't a problem will become a problem. So there gets to a point where deferred maintenance is no longer an option. You have to replace buildings because major mechanical systems have failed or are failing. So I'll wrap this up and just again, thank you for being here. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can. If not, I'm going to throw them back to the superintendent. But thank you again. Anybody have any questions?
Let's try the questions at the end.
Oh, that's it. Perfect. Okay.
Perfect.
Luke, I'll switch with you. And
So thank you so much. I always find those slides compelling. Oh my goodness. Yeah, if that were in my house, wow. So I'm here to introduce Luke now. Luke was born, raised, and educated in Helena. He is serving his first term representing House District 79 in the Montana legislature. Previously, he served 2 3-year terms on the Helena Public Schools Board of Trustees, including 3 years as board chair. He also served on, this is a hard thing to say, so I have to really read this one, Montana School Boards Association Board of Directors, where he was president in 2022. In his first legislative session, he introduced 3 school funding bills, 2 of which became law. And now we get to hear the state side.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the league. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. It was a wonderful opportunity. Thanks to Ryan and Todd and Trustee McKee in advance. I remember, as was just reminded me, I remember in 2017 as a new school board member, I toured Helena High and I went into the choir room. And the choir teacher showed me a plant that was growing out of the floor. And I laughed and I chuckled about it with her, and we went on with the rest of the tour. 2018, next year, came in. Plant had regrown, still there. I chuckled about it. She didn't chuckle back with me. 2019, I didn't dare go back in that classroom. I don't have to. I get to advocate for whatever I want up here. I want to just say thank you to our superintendent, to our facilities director, for our board of trustees, for saying this is long overdue. It's time to put this in front of the voters, and it's time to invest in these facilities. It is long overdue. As a former trustee, I applaud their courage and their strength in putting it forward. I want to give you a little bit of I want to put the ask in some context around what state funding sources are available for school facilities. And I also want to talk about some of the economic impacts that our school facilities have. I have 10 minutes to do this. You've all heard that school funding is really simple. So I'm going to oversimplify, and hopefully I won't, really strong school funding people in this crowd. I'm not going to point it out. I hope that they don't correct me. So, thank you so much. In 2021, there was a nationwide report that was put out. We were all a little bit busy, concerned with something else at the time, so I don't know that anybody read it. But what they sought to do is to assess the state of school facilities. Well, that's not good.
I don't think you can help it.
Yeah. To assess the state of school facilities throughout the country. And they published a Montana-specific report card. And so what they tried to do is they tried to say, okay, what should districts be putting in to maintain their facilities and to rebuild their facilities when necessary? And so to do that, they calculated what's called the current replacement value for all of the school facilities in the state. For Montana, in 2020, it was $8.8 billion. So this just kind of flashes on and off like that? Okay. So, what they said is that in a healthy, I guess, like to perform maintenance at the recommended level, you would want to be investing 7% of that CRV every year. So for Montana, that is $615 million. So what did Montana actually invest in 2020? Again, this is statewide, $299 million, leaving a gap of $316 million. So not quite 50% what the school facilities in Montana needed. So to break this down a little bit more, and this is important, let's put it in two different buckets. The first is maintenance and operations. So this is everything from cleaning your building to painting your building. I don't know how they define it. Let's just throw in maybe replacing the roof. So again, this is part of that number. Your M&O should be 3% of your CRV. So in Montana, statewide, that's $264 million. We invested $170 million, which means every year, that year, I guess, 2020, but I can guarantee you it hasn't gotten better, there's a gap of $94 million that's growing that deferred maintenance statewide. When we look at new construction, they suggest that we should be investing 4% of CRV, so $351 million. We actually put in $129 million. That leaves a gap of $223 million in 2020 alone. So I mention this because this is not a Helena problem. This is a statewide problem. We are the state, the locals, let's include the feds for the little they give us. We are not keeping up in maintaining and rebuilding when necessary our facilities. So let's look at what the state does give us. So again, that top number I just talked about, let's just talk about maintenance right now. So that M&O, as of 2020, we should have invested $264 million. So this chart is pretty small. You can't really see it. You see 2025, and then you see some 2026 and 2027 projected numbers. But in 25, the total statewide aid provided to districts was about $25 million. Now we passed House Bill 515 in the legislature last session, which increased that. It was great. I voted for it, advocated for it. Thank you to Representative Rexton for sponsoring that bill. So in 26, that means it's going to go up to $39 million. And in 27, $43 million. So as a legislator who's pro-public education, I like where that graph is going. But the point is, $264 million is what we needed to keep pace in 2020. So let's look at Helena's just maintenance in operations and construction needs. So this is where, fortunately this isn't being recorded. It is being recorded. This is very much back of the napkin math here. So if we take approximately 1.3 million square feet of all the facilities in Helena Public Schools, and that's probably going to go down a little bit. I'm sure that includes the old Ray York, where I went to elementary school, by the way, that is now being leased to St. Peter's. But, you know, again, back of the napkin math. And then $305 per square foot to replace, to rebuild that facility, okay? So $305 a square foot, that came from that report in 2021 that uses 2020 data. I have heard from multiple sources that actual rate is probably about $450 now, given the inflation we've seen around everything related to building. So we're going to lowball these numbers. But you know, when you're making an argument about finance, I think it's always a good thing to do. And I don't think we're going to like the math either way. So I just backed the napkin and said that CRV for Helena Public Schools is $397 million, $400 million, let's round up. So that means 7% of that, we should every year be putting in $28 million to maintenance operations for new construction. This is the point at which every trustee and every member of the school district is thinking, well, that's a little different than what we actually do put in. That 3% figure for M&O is $12 million, 4% for new construction is $16 million. Okay, so those are, according to this nationwide report published in 2021, those are the recommended level of investment just for Helena Public Schools. Again, my math, take it for what it's worth. So let's see what resources Helena Public Schools has to do. So we're just going to talk about the M&O, the maintenance and operations right now. And the categories of what fits into M&O versus what fits into new construction is pretty nuanced, but again, we're trying to simplify this. So again, recommended HPS annual M&O of $12 million. Their actual annual investment, and this is nuanced, this is actually the revenue they took in fiscal year 2024, was $5.6 million. Of that, so first of all, about half of what they need. Second of all, 500,000 of that, only 500,000 of that, came from the state. The rest of it came from all of you, local property taxes. And a big chunk of that was the 2023 building reserve, 10-year building reserve levy, which this community very generously and very critically chose to increase and renew. But the point here is that Helena doesn't have enough money to maintain their facilities, and most of the money they get isn't from the state, it's from local taxpayers. And so, as you heard Todd say, $120 million in deferred maintenance. Some people ask, and Todd said he gets asked this all the time, how do we get to that point? This is how we get to that point. When we only have 50% of what we need to even maintain our buildings, that is how $120 million of deferred maintenance adds up. So we're talking about a bond to build, to renovate 3 schools. So we're talking about new construction. So let's switch gears here. So 2008 report, it talked about, kind of assessed Montana K-12 educational facilities. This slide I picked out, it shows that the vast majority of schools in Montana were built in the 50s and 60s. If you look at that chart, it'll come up again, you'll see that it declines through 2008. And this is, of course, when that report was generated. I don't imagine it's gone up since then. I don't know if it's continued to decrease. But the point is that we built a lot of schools in the 50s and 60s. They're getting pretty darn old. And that's the story that Todd told you. So, what does the state, we just talked about what the state gave us to maintain our buildings. What do they give us for new construction? The answer is 0. Now, I had ChatGPT proof this, and I said, well, really, it's a little bit more than 0, so effectively 0, fine. So, local bonds paid for by local taxpayers is what builds new buildings. And there's some nuances around it. There are some mechanisms in which you could use different funds to help pay down that bond, but for the most part, the state of Montana stays out. And it's the responsibility of the local taxpayers, and in order for a district to build a new facility, they need to pass the bond. Is it this way everywhere? No. So, many of you have heard about this. There is this 2025 School Funding Interim Commission. The legislature is required every 10 years to study the school funding formula. Very happy to be on that commission. We are just getting started. But it was interesting to look back 10 years ago at some of the things that that commission came up with. And they talked a lot about facilities. And one of the things they talked about, you can't really see this slide, but they talked about some different models. And so a lot of you have heard about Wyoming. So they have the opposite approach. It's all funded by the state. They basically prescribe when a school district needs a new building, and they provide all the state funding to do it. Now, interestingly enough, 10 years ago, the commission studied that, and some of them, they weren't all sold on it. It sounds like some of them felt like they wanted that local control over when and how and that kind of thing. But when you're looking at the deferred maintenance that Helena Public Schools has, and you're looking at how important this current bond proposal is, but you're looking at how much would be left even if it passes, you're hard pressed to say, could we sacrifice a little local control for a little bit more state funding? Anyway, the point is, it's not always, different states do it differently. And I know because I'm on the commission, I'm going to bring it up, but we are going to be talking about facilities again, and hopefully we can do something that will help districts in their new construction. So effectively zero down the road will become an incorrect statement. But for now, that's the situation we're in. So, a difficult spot. We have rising deferred maintenance. We have rising new construction costs. We have inadequate state funding for both maintenance and new construction. And this one hurts a little bit, but we have inadequate local investment as well. The bottom line is, for about 40 years, we traded predictably low and decreasing property taxes for a lack of investment in our schools. And it's an understandable choice to make. I'll tell you as a politician, I've never met somebody who doesn't like lower taxes. But it came at a huge cost. We're behind. You all know that. And that is what we're trying to catch up from. And the fact of the matter is that right now, right here, it is our choice. It is our responsibility. We are the only ones here in Helena to fix it. All right. One more slide, because I have two different things. I promise this one won't take 10 or 15 minutes or however long I talked about. And really, Callie with the chamber is back there, should be doing this slide, but maybe you can ask her a question in the Q&A. Schools are not just, good facilities are not just about the kids and the teachers. I have to tell you, I believe strongly that Helena needs sustainable growth to prosper. And I think there's a lot of people in Helena who disagree with that. I disagree with that probably every other day because I lived here my whole life. I like Helena for what it is. I don't want it to change. But the bottom line is that if we want our wages to keep pace with cost of living, if we want our retirement benefits to keep pace with cost of living, we need economic growth. And so there's an interesting tie in with school facilities, and I'm sure all of you will intuitively understand. But we are hearing from a lot, and the chamber is hearing from a lot of businesses who are struggling to recruit staff. And oftentimes, the staff visit Helena, they tour the facility, they meet with their potential coworkers, but they're young families and they have kids who are going to go to school. And so they have to assess what is the quality of the schools in Helena. And I'll tell you, the quality of the schools in Helena is better than anywhere else. We have the best teachers, we have the best students, we have the best families. We all know that, and as Todd said, that is what is most important. But when you have 24 hours or 48 hours to come into a town and get the lay of the land and assess the quality of education, you have to judge a book by its cover, which means you drive around as you're maybe looking at houses and you look at the schools. And when you see schools that are old, with chipping paint, with holes out of the concrete, walls, not through anyone's fault, but because we've fallen behind in our maintenance, That suggests to people that this is a community that does not take public education seriously. And that dissuades, we are hearing from businesses, that dissuades potential employees from choosing to live and work here. And that is undermining our local economy. On the flip side, when we invest, in particular when we invest in our high school, and I'm super excited about the improvements to our CTE resources, we are going to create pathways. She's standing up, that means I'm over time, I'm going. Okay, we will create pathways that are going to funnel students right into the workforce for great jobs. And then the last thing is, we're going to be able to host larger activities, tournaments, track and field in May, something we can't do now, but if we could do, we're going to bring tons of people into Helena, they're going to spend money, and that is going to be good for our local economy. So with that, thank you. Sorry for going over time, but I really appreciate it and look forward to questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I saw some people filling out cards with numbers there. And our final speaker tonight is Jennifer McKee. She is a product of Montana Public Schools and has 2 children in the Helena School District. She has volunteered in the classroom and on parent councils, and when her children's school building closed in 2013, her life took a turn. She says, we went from a parent council happy to laminate something to a group that needed to get a major facilities bond passed because that's what our school and other schools in Helena needed. When the 2015 bond failed, she helped lead a group of parents on the Central Parent Council in a 2-year strategy to build consensus around a solution for that school and the 2 other schools in greatest need. That bond passed. Now, in her 2nd term as a school trustee and as chair of the board, she continues to believe that real problems need real solutions, formerly a statewide newspaper reporter, so that's why you have all those facts and figures in your meetings. Jennifer is currently a digital strategist for the Went Agency here in Helena.
I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'm just going to sit. It's true, it's funny how all of us up here are connected a little bit. My kids were at Central when Helena ran a building to failure. So I've lived what happens when a building cannot be occupied by students or teachers. And it stayed like that for years. We got that 2017 bond passed because it was a dumpster fire. I mean, it was just an absolutely upside down, irrational way to run public education. Central Elementary moved into where Powell had been. When Mr. Cooney said that Powell was at Lincoln, the reason it left and moved overnight into the Front Street Learning Center is because Lincoln was pushed out of the way in 48 hours for most of the students at Central. They didn't even all fit that first year. So when this bond came, well, when our superintendent brought up the urgency, I mean, it was something that is very, very personal to me, and the notion that Helena High could be unoccupiable is not a threat, and it's not a theory. That could literally happen when, it's not an if, it's a when, the boilers fail, so Helena High will not be able to be occupied. And the Helena High community students, they'll be moving over to Capitol, and we'll be running Capitol in 2 shifts of students. And while that is dystopian and horrible in many, many ways, just imagine yourself on Custer Avenue at noon when 1,300 students are leaving, plus all of their teachers, and 900 students and all of their teachers are trying to get in. That's going to happen in 60 minutes. And it makes the price tag of this bond awfully digestible. If you've got a $300,000 taxable value of your home, your monthly cost is $14.42. And honestly, just not having to be stuck in the gridlock on Custer Avenue is actually, to me, worth $14.42 a month. So I'm going to answer some, or talk about a little bit of stuff on the board perspective. One of the questions I hear a lot is, why now? We're so divided, everything's so expensive. Montana is the most unaffordable state in the country to live. Everyone's all stirred up. We just voted down a bunch of levies. Every single one of those statements is true, but there's not going to be a better time. If we're waiting for America to become more unified and in a better mood, I'm not waiting for that day. I mean, the boilers will absolutely fail, that's what we're waiting for. If we're waiting for Montana to become more affordable, it hasn't happened in my entire life. So, I mean, if we don't, as a board and as our district leadership, start speaking very honestly with the community about what's at stake and how close we are to an actual disaster where there is no going back from, no one else is going to. So this is on the ballot because one, it is direly, direly needed, but number two, this is just basic leadership. The community of Helena needs to know what's at stake. And as former trustee and legislator Miscavige pointed out, no one's coming to save us. The state provides essentially $0. The state does play a role in our whole mixed up situation. That your property taxes went up on average 20% in 2024. And part of that was for quote unquote education. One of the reasons that Montana is so unaffordable is because property taxes went through the roof. And when the legislature did that, they didn't ask your permission and they didn't tell you where the money was going to go. I can tell you where the money went. It went to backfill an income tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest Montanans. This bond is going to go for one thing only, by law. It's going to go for those buildings that will educate every kid in town, not the rich ones, not the ones who don't need any help getting by in Montana, but literally everyone. And if you look at the stats, almost every single kid in Montana is right around poverty. They're barely in the middle class. So you're really reaching the average person with this bond, and that's exactly where the money will go. And it's not going to come from anyone else but the taxpayers of District 1. Another question I get a lot is, why didn't you do this before? It's kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And it's sort of exactly what Mr. Miscavige was saying. Like, there was a trade-off between trying to keep taxes low and being respectful for how expensive it is just to get by. And we waited and played that game for a long, long time, and we're at the end of the line. And that end of the line is going to come. I mean, we're writing checks out of Helena High that we don't know will cash. Like, one of these days, the checks will bounce. Like, there's only so much life left in that boiler, and Mr. Burrell's team has kept it going. It is actually staggering that it's even still operating. My kids are at Helena High. One of my kids is at Helena High. My daughter started at UM on Monday. And one of the stories that my kids would talk about was the silverfish. And I just gotta unpack the silverfish situation just a smidge. So, as we've all heard tonight, Helena High is leaking 10,000 gallons of water every single year, and it sits in kind of a muddy bog to begin with. And silverfish are a prehistoric insect that love damp areas. Well, there ain't nothing damper than Helena High. And as an added bonus, they eat carbohydrates, including the carbohydrates in paper. So what you need for a well-established, healthy silverfish population is lots of books, lots of paper, and 24/7 dampness. And Helena High fits the bill. There are silverfish and these little things that scurry all around. My daughter, she was sort of like reminiscing, as on her way to college, was like, there were two kinds of people at Helena High. Those who killed silverfish and those who didn't. I love that memory for you. Got a little lost on the silverfish. And Capitol High truly only looks good by comparison. I mean, Capitol High is not a building that you would feel good about if you didn't have Helena High in your same town. Another question that I hear a lot is, why are we just replacing them? Why don't we just fix what we've got? Well, for one thing, I mean, the original Helena High building that opened in the 1870s no longer exists, and that building lasted about 50, 60 years, and then they built the new Helena High, which is now HMS, and that served as a high school for only 20 years. So the fact that we've gotten 70 years out of that building, that's actually a new city record. And Helena's schools are second oldest in the state, or are they the oldest? Central is the oldest elementary. I don't know about the high schools, but we're down deep into the 1870s. I mean, we actually don't have a track record of just continually maintaining old buildings, because after a while, I mean, kids need new kinds of skills. If we kept old Helena High, nobody would like it because you couldn't get to the, I mean, it's gone, it's long gone. Gosh, where else? Let me look at my notes here. One question is, do you think it's so much money, you're foolish for even putting it on the ballot? Helena wouldn't even pass a $14 million levy. Yep, that's the truth. Again, if you don't put it on the ballot, no one even ever has a choice, and they don't know that it's a crisis until the crisis has come. Levies are different than bonds. I feel like this is a crowd that knows the difference between a levy and a bond, but just in case you don't, a levy pays for operations. A bond pays for buildings. I don't want to unpack the entire core of school funding in Montana, but our district just got into a right side up budget cycle that has been a long time coming, where our budget actually is black or dark gray for the first time in a very, very long time, and it is sustainable looking down the road, longer than we've been able to look. We've been looking financially at a cliff almost every single year, and if you guys have been paying attention, and I know that you guys have all been paying attention, but it has been cutting teachers, combining classrooms, ending programs, shrinking. I mean, every single year in Helena Public Schools, every teacher gets essentially a possible pink slip because we're going to have to shrink, to fit into our budget over the summer. That's just one of many. I mean, so many things. But we did it. Now we are finally right side up, and our operating funds are working. Our building funds are not working, and there's no other way to get out of it except to just work together and pass a bond. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, Kessler Elementary. That one's a fun one. Like, why are you not just repairing Kessler? First of all, Kessler itself is a replacement building. Like a lot of schools in Helena are, it's a replacement building. The original one was kind of a historic-looking thing. I don't know why they knocked it down and built what they did, but as you say, it's been added on so many times. I used to joke that it was like a sea anemone. Like, the only opening was in the very middle, and you couldn't find it when you just looked at it. I mean, it is filled with love, and it is filled with quality education, and the kids who graduate from that school show the value of the education that went into them, but the building itself is really bonkers crazy. If you haven't been into it, it is just nuts. It was never really meant to be what it is, and it is time to build it and make it a proper school. One thing about kind of the history in our district is we built 3 new elementaries in 2017. They opened their doors in 2019. COVID happened in 2020. The kids who went back into Central and all of these new schools, they didn't actually even get one whole school year in them. So going back to the high schools was kind of always the plan. It's not new news to anyone who's been around that the high schools were in dire need. We finally just built those 3 elementaries, sucked it up and got through COVID, got our budget right side up, and Rex gave us 48 hours before he was like, let's hit it hard on a bond, you guys, $280 million. But I'm proud to be part of a board in the district that is facing our problems head on. We faced our budget problem, we dealt with it. We're facing our building problems, and we're dealing with it. And one thing to leave you guys all with, despite the silverfish and despite all the problems that our buildings face, our schools are truly some of the best in the country. Helena High is the number 3 high school in the state of Montana, silverfish and all, and Capitol High is number 8. I mean, we're in the top 10, and we are not investing money in the buildings. We are investing money in the people, and it shows. Our district it's a beautiful work. It's been a joy to be part of it, but it is time for the exterior beauty to match the interior beauty of our district.
Wow, thanks to all of you for all of your comments. I think we have a pretty comprehensive look at this now. And now, let's see, we've got some lead folks here ready to pick up cards with your questions. And we'll start our Q&A. And let me grab one here and we'll just get started, and then I'll come over here. Okay. Let's see. I'm just kind of trying to choose some. All right. This is for Ryan, when did you as a teacher begin to notice serious or uncorrected building issues? There should be another,
Really?
Yep, click that, got it.
Okay, great question. And so I would say really from the first moment I started at PAL, the inadequacy of that building was apparent. First of all, the classrooms are kind of falling apart. We have had leak issues. We also have had heater issues. A year or two ago, some pipes burst, which flooded one of the classrooms. They then had to shut off that heat for a period of time while they got the pipes fixed. One of the biggest issues that we have in a project called Alternative Learning is the bathroom situation. There are constant lines at the two student restrooms. I believe the boys' bathroom has one single stall and 2 or 3 urinals. The girls' bathroom, I think, might have 2 or 3 stalls. And so in the short amount of time that these students have to use the restroom, there are constant lines, which causes problems. We have students who are uncomfortable quite a lot of the time. The other problem at PAL is the security. We have not been able to update the security at PAL like we have at some of the other schools. And so this has been an ongoing issue since PAL moved into what was initially the Front Street Learning Center, because once more, it was never meant to be a school. And really, I believe that it was supposed to be a short-term landing spot for PAL, now been there for 12 or 13 years. And so this has been present really for the entire time that I have been there.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's pass it to Todd here, because this question says, could the heating systems be replaced in these schools, and what would the cost be?
Okay. Can they be replaced? Yes. Should they be replaced? No. So we are in the process right now of replacing the HVAC system, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC, at Smith Elementary. That's a $2 million project, and we're wrapping it up right now. The cost for replacing that HVAC system is about $50 a square foot. So for a 40,000 square foot school, it's $2 million. For a 237,000 square foot school like Helena High, that's $14 million. That's an estimate. I don't know if that includes asbestos mitigation. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know when you do a renovation. So for every $5 you spend on a renovation, add another $1 for things you don't know. So that's 20%. Add 20% at least. So $14 million then becomes $16 million. And that's the best case scenario. So yes, we could do that. It is not advised. We've talked to many experts, and that is not an advisable solution for that particular school. The walls in that school, if you know anything about R values, which is a measure of how well something is insulated, typically homes, the R value in their walls is about 30. The R value in the walls at Helena High is 3. Okay, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year heating that building. And with an R value of 3, that money is literally escaping out through the walls. So yes, we could replace the system. You would still have an R value of 3. You would still have pest infestation issues. You would still have inadequate learning spaces. And you would still have a school that's 70 years old that still has another $20 to $40 million of deferred maintenance. That's one of the many, many issues in that school. It's the reason we bring up the boilers is because it's dramatic. And it is the biggest issue, but it's not the only issue. There is an issue with every component of that school. Probably except the roofs, because we've spent money on the roofs. I just did some quick math. And I'm just going to say this really quickly. Roofs are really important because they can protect everything underneath it. So it's number one on my priority list is roofs. We have 1.3 million square feet of roofs in the district. That's about $34 million worth of roofs. So that just puts it into context. There's 23 roof sections on Helena High. I can replace 1 or 2 sections a year with my budget. $1.5 million for the elementary schools. $25 a square foot to replace a roof. So the boilers, the tip of the iceberg, folks. And yes, you could. I don't advise it. It's not best practice. And really, it's throwing good money into a school that it's not a good investment.
Thank you.
Yes.
Here's another one. I think this one might be for Luke. Does our public school situation open the door to complete privatization of our school system?
You can hang that.
Any one of you
I
can
didn't write
handle
that.
that.
I didn't write that.
I guess I'm not sure exactly what the question is getting at. I mean, I guess, are they posing the question of, hey, instead of using taxpayer-funded dollars to invest in public education, we ought to instead embrace private education for everyone? I mean, if that's what they're getting at, I guess that's a question that you could ask. But I will say for me, I would have 2 quick responses, and one would be, I think like a lot of people in here, I feel a moral obligation to provide education to students regardless of their situation. Whether they have 1 or 2 parents, what their family income is, whether they're born here or they're a refugee. I feel a moral obligation to do that. The second thing is, and this may be more compelling to some of you, we have a state constitutional obligation to do that. The Montana Constitution is very clear. It doesn't say you just have to run a nice little public education system. It sets actually a very high bar that suggests that you have to meet each student where they're at and provide them everything they need to reach their highest potential. So that is in our state constitution. So I think for those 2 reasons, I would suggest that a system that was fully privatized is a non-starter for me. But I guess, gosh, if I'm not looking at that question correctly, I hope you'll come up and we will absolutely have a civil conversation about it no matter what, and explain to me kind of what you're getting at there. But yeah, I don't think this has much to do with privatization. I think this obligation will exist there, and how we choose to meet the moment is on us.
Thank you. Next question, does the district have a master facility plan for the district or individual schools?
Yes. In fact, we have been working with SMA architects for about 3 years. They worked with the community members, stakeholders across Helena, teachers, parents, business owners, and we developed, as a group, a master facilities plan that is basically our guiding light on how we move forward to be good stewards of taxpayers' money. People want to know what the roadmap is. And unfortunately at this point, and if you ask Mr. Meldrum from SMA, he said we can start anywhere. There's no logical first place to start because we have so many issues. But I think that we went through that process, and we also nested that with our deferred maintenance plan, which we also have, and said the logical place to start right now is at the high schools, and specifically with Helena High. But we know, as you've seen in my awesome pictures, Capitol High is not far behind. So yes, we have a plan. There was a lot of thought put into it. There was a lot of collaboration. And I'm really happy with the product. And hopefully this is the first step in our roadmap to get to where we need to go. It's going to be a long-term process, folks. This is step 1. But we've got to start somewhere, and it's going to take a long time to get to where we need to be. But the kids in this community deserve it.
Thank you. This is kind of a follow-up to that. Why did you decide to ask for $250 million for 3 schools instead of bonds in different years? I think we could pass that to any one of you. Yeah, this could be past the microphone time here. Who wants this one?
Like, why stack it all on at once? 2 big reasons. One, these are our top 3 priorities. Helena High is an urgent priority. It is facing an imminent crisis. Capitol High is only good, as I said, by comparison. It is facing the next crisis, and Kessler is the absolute most urgent need for elementary. They will be 2 different decision points because we have an elementary district and a high school district, so it will not be one whole decision that you make with circling one oval. There will be an elementary bond on your ballot, and there will be a high school bond on your ballot. If people decide that it's just too much and the high schools are more important, then they can make that choice. But that is the rationale. I mean, you could have done that, you could have dribbled it out, I guess, but the high schools were very urgent and it was important to take care of them together. And also there is something about, it's important that every Helena High School student has an equal opportunity at what a new building would bring to them. So while rebuilding Helena High is obviously the most urgent, you would have one high school that was in significantly better shape than the other one, even more disparate than they are now, and it just simply wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to have the east side of town have a new building with all this new stuff and CTE and other acronyms that we can't easily identify, while Capital carried on just, one longer term crisis away from catching up to where Helena High is now.
Thank you so much.
Can I chime in on that a little bit? Can I plug my thing back in? Because I want to show you guys something here that piggybacks on what Mr. Miscavige said here. Yep. Okay, here, I'm going to plug this in because I love doing PowerPoints and I love doing my little spreadsheets and I love to keep that way. Okay, he showed that. He showed the. Yeah, what am I not showing?
That's Helena High.
I have 2 screens on my, at my office. Oh, Rex, so good at this.
He wrote it because we were kicked out. If the superintendent.
Luke showed the diagram of school building in Montana. It's the same in Helena. So I've got all our facilities on there, including 7th Avenue Gym, which is built in 1908. But you can see this normal distribution, almost normal distribution bell curve. 1940s, we built 4 schools. In the 1950s, we built 4 schools. In the 1960s, we built 4 schools. In the 1970s, we built 1 school. And then we didn't do anything until 2016. That's why we're in this situation now, guys, because of this. And this school, Fort George, was built in 1977, was the new school until we built the 3 new ones. So we're trying to catch up now. And we tried to pass a bond in 1997 to rebuild Helena High for $21 million. That's $88 a square foot. It now costs $450 a square foot to build a school. So if we wait, if we continue to wait, then it's going to be $500, and then it's going to be $550, and then it's going to be $750. We can't keep doing this. What got us here isn't going to move us forward. So this tells me everything I need to know on how we got to where we're at. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I think it's important for people to see this and try to wrap their heads around how did we get here? And there's no fault to be, I'm not blaming anyone, but I'm sitting in this job right now and I am not going to let this happen anymore from my perspective. One of the things that we really value in the military and in the Army in particular is that your people speak with candor. And they tell you the truth, even if it's difficult to hear. So I told the superintendent, hey boss, this isn't okay, and we've got to do this now, or we will run to failure, and we will then be in an emergency situation. And you think it's expensive to build a school now with over 3 years? You might double that price if it's an emergency build. So we don't want to get into that position, and I'm speaking with candor to everybody in this room right now. This is the true story of our schools and our facilities. And I don't know how I could say it any more clearly. So, okay.
Thank you. So now we have a couple of people who are wondering, where would Helena High School be built? What would the construction timeline be? What happens while Helena High is being constructed? Where are the students?
I guess that's me again. Must have been those awesome pictures. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I love those pictures. Okay. This is a tight timeline. This is an ambitious timeline, but it's doable. So on a large, complex construction project, such as Helena High and Capitol High, you typically have about 12 months of design. That's the architects working to design a project. And then typically about 2 years to build it. Now there's ways to tighten that timeline up depending on how you do it. But 3 years is the standard timeline for this project. For both of them, really. Well, all three of them. Our goal is to have the doors open on these schools in September of 2028. That's why we're doing a kind of a special election here, is because we need to start now so that we have a full 36 months to do this process. Now, as far as the location of Helena High, it'll be on the same campus. We want it on the same campus. There's no design yet, so we don't know exactly where. We have some ideas, and we have some schematics that SMA drew up, basically to see if it could fit. And you could build a new school, essentially in the parking lot of Helena High right now, so that kids could remain in Helena High while construction is happening on site. And then when that new school is built, or almost entirely built, then you would demolish the old school and do the additional improvements to the campus, such as athletic facilities, parking lots, and so on and so forth. So on the same campus, it was important to us to keep it in town for walkability purposes and as a centerpiece of our community. And that's, we kicked around ideas of maybe a different campus in a different location, but the community came back and said, we want our school to stay in that location, even though there's some challenges to it, but we can overcome those. And you know, that's the direction we would like to go.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not sure who wants this one. Let's see, why did the board decide to fund a transportation building when HPS contracts their buses out? Why are we paying for a first student bus barn?
Well, I don't think we are paying for a bus barn.
We are not.
We are
No,
not.
this isn't.
But there may be some confusion out there that there has been a conversation of why are you even thinking about building a facility for the buses? Isn't it just a contract? I mean, I know the Rex will correct me because I might get some piece of this wrong. But right now we lease it. We lease it all. You pay every single year forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And there's an opportunity to potentially to own the land and own the stuff, and then you wouldn't be, at some point you just own it and then you wouldn't be paying for it year over year. So it would be a long-term cost savings, but that's not really what's in the bond. I hope I'm not muddying the waters, I'm almost certain that I have. But there is no HPS bus barn in the bond.
Thank you. Here's another one that you guys can pass the mic for. What are the plans for the district's unused real estate, such as Hawthorne? This is why we don't have you guys.
You can't look at me.
Trustee Miscavige, you wanna?
I got it.
The superintendent's here, he can jump in if you want.
Sure, I'll be happy to pass you the
Or
mic.
I'm happy to answer too, but it'd be wrong, whichever.
I literally was back here enjoying this because I've been doing this for 3-4 months. And it's like the information that I've had passing along, does it come out right? Todd's done well. Jennifer, we need to talk. So the question, read that question again, Sherry.
Well,
Is it right here?
Let me read a different one.
It's not that difficult, it really is not.
Tough questions here. So here it is. Sorry, where did I end my turn?
So we're talking about surplus properties, and quite frankly, there's some examples out there.
What are the planned or the district's unused real estate?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the unused real estate. First of all, the district does not have a bus barn. We don't own one. First, we contract with First Students. I'm going to go back a little bit and just clean up some of the waters. We contract with First Student. First Student then is obligated to find land for their buses. And so what they end up doing is they found a section of ground or a piece of ground out to the east of us, and they entered into a contract, most likely, with an individual, and so they pay that individual to park their buses on his or their property. At some point in our life, I would like to be able to have buses on our property, because that revenue source then comes back to us. If we own property, then that becomes a revenue source for us. And so I think it's really smart for us to have property that we have our buses parked on, that we then end up having the revenue source, and it doesn't go somewhere else. That's really strategic in our planning of how to generate revenue when it's really difficult, as you've seen from the big building that you have here, from state to build revenue within the district. To go back to the unused pieces or our facilities, we have some, but perhaps maybe the best example is Ray York Learning Center. That was an area that we have, we moved programs out of that building and we entered them back into room within our district. So we have that building unoccupied. We entered into a long-term lease with St. Pete's. We generate now about $275,000 a year on a long-term lease. And so that's an example of what we want to do with our properties. 7th Ave Gym, that's sat empty for many, many years. And we entered into a long-term lease with Queen City Football, a soccer league. Though we're not making a lot of money on that, they are paying for the utilities, and we lease that out for $1 a year. It's not a lot, but it's not that we are paying for the utilities, which is around $13,000 to $14,000 a year. And so those are examples. We have Ray Bjork, or we have May Butler that went out for RFPs. We're looking for proposals and see what the community would want to do with May Butler. We haven't found suitable uses for that building yet, and so we are looking at other options. We also have Hawthorne, and within the Hawthorne community, we really are going to go out for RFPs. We're going to see what the proposals are around town and what might best be the best fit for that neighborhood. So we have plans for unused facilities. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is for Todd. Can you speak to the efficiencies that will be gained from the new buildings, utilities, transportation?
Sure, I think the best example was the one I already mentioned, the boilers at Helena High, 45% efficiency. New boilers that are hot water boilers, hydronic boiler systems are about 95% efficiency. And then you look at things like a single pane window on Kessler Elementary and new low E windows, double pane windows. You look at things like old fluorescent lights and replacing those with LED lights, which are a fraction of the cost for utilities. You can look at things such as ventilation systems that are much more efficient as well. Heating systems. We would like to add air conditioning. That is an expense, but relatively speaking, air conditioning is not a huge expense. But we no longer live in a time where air conditioning should not be in our schools. Typically new buildings, I don't know the exact percentage, but they are significantly more efficient than old systems, especially ones that are 70 years old, and especially ones that have walls that are made out of 2x4s with R values of 3. So we are right now engaged in a contact with Amoresco to do an energy audit on all of our facilities, and I'll have a better answer in a few months, but I know for a fact, since we built new schools, that they're much more efficient across the board than the old schools are.
Thank you so much. Remember, I'm not the one asking these questions. If anybody wants to clarify, feel free. Do you all feel the business community in Helena and the Valley support these bonds? Yeah, let's have Callie answer that.
It's never good when you give me a microphone. Sherry knows this actually. I would say yes. On behalf of the business community, we've had a ton of support from our chamber membership. Back in January, our board met. We have a board of 31 people. It's a large board, 10 ex officios, and then 21 members that are nominated out of the business community that are voting members. And they all, even in January, said that school funding was a priority for us. And so we have been looking at this and talking to folks like Luke about how we can help our community. We understand that workforce is an incredible need in Helena. We want our kids to stay here. We want to create pipelines. We have 2 incredible secondary learning opportunities here between Carroll College and Helena College. And so being able to offer kids career and technical education opportunities and then get them into pipelines that keep them here. We know that communities that invest in kids, those kids come back and invest in their communities. And so I think the business community from a workforce standpoint is extremely supportive of the school bonds. I think they're extremely supportive from a community building standpoint. I think they understand that communities need strong schools. And so we are thrilled to be standing, next to the school district and across the city. We've been doing a lot of educational opportunities and it's been incredible, and the support from the business community has been great. And if you drive around, you'll see the signs. We've had a lot of businesses stand up and take on signs, and so it has been so much fun to work on this with the business community because they're very, very excited at the opportunities that are on our way.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions. Is everybody okay with 1 or 2 more here? All right. Yeah, there's some challenging ones. Was Hawthorne better than Kessler? Is the actual question. I think what they mean is, was the Hawthorne building better than Kessler? Mm-hmm.
Todd, I know, can jump in too, but the facilities master plan looked at every single building, and it wasn't, part of it was to provide a roadmap, but part of it was just to get like a baseline temperature taking of what you actually have. What is the future of the properties that you actually have? Hawthorne's site was much, much smaller and did not allow a bigger building to ever be built there. The Hawthorne building only had 9 classrooms, so it didn't allow growth into that existing building anyway, even if you wanted to, if the desire was to collapse one building into the other, and that was the conversation, which I can tell you it wasn't really. But it was just that the site was small and the building was small. The 3rd floor was uninhabitable. I mean, so the answer is no.
All right, thank you. Here's a question. How is all of this great information getting out to the public, the voters?
So they probably all pass the mic down on this one. The campaign, the Yes for Helena Schools campaign is awesome to watch. I mean, there is information and signage and it has been a really like a multi-pronged effort. The business community has been involved, the brews and bonds and the brown bags and bonds. I really just focused on the brew part. I wasn't even sure there was a brown bag and bonds, but there have been multiple layered efforts to bring people, into the schools to see firsthand what they look like. Most people who haven't been in Helena High for a long time will be surprised to know that it hasn't changed at all. There's been all kinds of ways to push the information out, including a fairly robust ad campaign as well.
Yeah, I think you nailed a lot of the main points here as far as how this has been advertised and the wonderful job that the district has done campaigning on this. I know that teachers have been very active. I know that community members, people with kids, people who have graduated kids, people with no kids. As was mentioned, the business community, the Chamber of Commerce has been very helpful as well. And it's been interesting. Helena's a special place. We're still a small community. We all know each other for the most part. And so whether it's Facebook, Twitter, whatever else, there has been maybe some tense conversation at times. but I've seen a lot of civility as well, and that has been good to see. And once more, functions like this tonight, this is exactly what we need, and we've had some great questions, so.
I just want to say one quick thing, if you haven't been there yet, helenaschoolbond.org. It is a very, very good website, very well put together. The information on that website answers probably a quarter of the questions that have been asked tonight, including some of the difficult ones, which is why this school, why not that school? And it includes information from the facilities master plan that the board finished last year, and it answers those questions. So I just think it props on the transparency there, and I think it's a very good resource that if you haven't been there, go and please share that. Thank you.
I just want to go back to the last question real quick.
Okay.
So both of those schools need a lot of work. One of the big deciding factors with Hawthorne is a very large deferred maintenance bill on that building. I think it's our smallest elementary in size, but it had almost $5 million in deferred maintenance, whereas Kessler, deferred maintenance is about $2.5 million, so half as much as Kessler. And then of course, half as much as Hawthorne. And then of course Kessler is a much larger site, so you can actually build a school on that site and keep kids in the original school. So you simply cannot build on the Hawthorne site without demolishing the old building and then building a new school in the same footprint. And that's really disruptive for the kids. So yeah, all things being equal, the deferred maintenance at Hawthorne was really one of the major deciding factors, and it doesn't have room for expansion. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're almost ready to close, but I'm going to loop back really quickly because if you would like, we have yes signs here that the head of the committee, the yes committee, has brought in for us. So if you would like, that is one of the ways that we publicize, is letting people know that this is going on. People tend to look at signs like that and Google them, and then they get information. There's a lot of information on our front table as well. You are welcome to take any of that. And right now, I would really like to thank all of our expert speakers. We really appreciate your viewpoints on this and your straight shooting answers.